Hello everyone, thanks a lot for joining us today. Today we have with us Tanya. I'll let her introduce herself. She gave a really great session yesterday on DevOps and testing. So Tanya, what was the session about?
Hi, so my name is Tanya and I did a session which was called Road to DevOps, Data Environment and Test Automation. And the session was really about how to help an organization get from whatever process they are right now to a continuous delivery.
So you're saying your session actually was focused upon getting people who might be even manually testing, manual process right now, to a continuous delivery. Am I right in saying that?
Yep.
Okay, let's take a step back over here. Imagine I'm a company, I'm in a manual process right now, doing it manually, releasing it on a 15-20 day cadence schedule, limited continuous delivery. What are the 3 things or 4 things I should really care about in order to go to that continuous delivery mechanism?
Sure. So the way I structured the talk was even like basically going step by step, assuming you're starting from scratch or wherever you are. So the first thing I recommend to do is always identify the bottlenecks.
Okay.
Right? Because I think that's one step that often gets bypassed and people get directly to using tools to do automation. But first is to figure out what your real problems are.
Right.
Right. So I was introducing several techniques of how to identify those bottlenecks.
Give us 2 examples of how to identify bottlenecks.
Sure. So one thing I really like doing myself is playing the speedboat game. This is where you basically assume that your delivery process is a speedboat, and you need to identify anchors which are holding it back.
Okay.
Right. So you bring people on at the same time, and they start defining those anchors and how deep those anchors go.
Got it.
Right. And the anchors that are the deepest and the ones that most people select are the ones that you should focus on first.
Got it. Give us an example of different anchors which you have come across in your automation career, which you see fairly on a day-to-day basis, which are holding people back.
Sure. So some of the anchors is actually in the title of my talk is in test environments, right? I've seen that being as one of the bigger bottlenecks where people might have full automation in place and everything working, but because environments are not there, then they struggle with running their tests.
Right.
Another example is test data. Right. Very often, again, you have everything in place, but your test data gathering is a manual process.
Got it.
Right, and that can become a huge bottleneck. And then, of course, there is always the test cycle itself.
Got it.
Right, you might have it automated, but the automation might be flaky, or your results reporting might not be where it's supposed to be. Like if you send a huge report to developers, they're still not going to be able to process the results.
Got it. So that's the first part of the talk. Now we have figured out what is holding us back. Where do I go next then?
So once you figure out what those bottlenecks are, I actually went into all the some of the possible bottlenecks and give advice of how to approach them. Right. So a few I just mentioned were environments, data, automation. I also talk about such things as make sure that your build is automated, make sure that you have all your artifacts, including test artifacts and environment artifacts in a repository like Git. Right. Also results reporting. I think it's a very, very important thing that also gets bypassed very often, automating the actual reporting and analysis of the results.
Got it. So just wondering, all these experiences are coming from your experiences beforehand. Were you also in a similar boat before where you had to improve your continuous delivery process? Am I right in saying that?
Yes. I mean, I have been multiple times. Since I think 4 years ago, I moved out from being part of the big QA organization, financial industry, into smaller orgs, and I came there with no QA and trying to build it from scratch. And this is where this experience came from. I basically had to start with finding out what's working and what's not working, and then planning how to fix it.
You touched upon a really good concept here about a few seconds back. You spoke about having no QA in your organization, right?
Yep.
And many times when you go to a fresh organization, start from scratch, you would see that you have to set up processes from scratch.
Yep.
So how did you get the management backing in order to set up a QA organization, or did they previously realize itself even before you were on board that they needed a QA team?
Yeah, so I guess I was lucky. So the 3 organizations where I came in with no QA, the reason they brought me in is because they realized that one of their biggest pain point is the fact that there is no QA.
Oh, so
I didn't have to go and prove myself and sell it. I mean, I had to sell some of the new processes and changes that we're implementing, but all the developers felt the pain and they knew that they want QA to be there.
Got it. But how do you sell up? So the other thing which is selling the new processes, How did you go about doing that?
So the approach I've used, and it seemed to work well, and I'm actually using it right now in Audible, which I just joined, again building the new QA org, is get the developers on board with you. So it's not like you write up the process, you send it out to everyone and says this is what you're going to start following tomorrow. What I usually do is like assemble like a task force of people who, like developers, managers, operation folks, who I see as somebody who like has a, like some innovative way of thinking or has a way of like influencing others. And I'm sharing my ideas with them before I actually make them into a process. I gather their feedback, I adjust it, and then by the time that I share it, everybody's already on board. Like you don't have to sell it.
You don't have to sell it much, because at the end of the day, you've already taken feedback from different segments, different parts of the company.
Yeah, that's right.
And as a result, they are on board. Quick follow-up question. When is your next talk?
My next talk.
Have you decided that?
No, I mean I've submitted a couple of proposals. So one conference that I really want to go to is the Grace Hopper conference, which is the Women in Technology one.
Got it.
So I applied for a talk there. Not sure. I mean, it's very, very selective.
Okay.
Another one that I've dreamed about going for a while is the Google Test Conference.
Got it. Okay.
So I was invited there before as an attendee, but now I really want to go there as a presenter.
Now you want to take it up a step level, huh?
Yeah.
Step above. The other thing which I wanted to ask you is, for many people who might be listening to us, they might want to get more insights into what they presented. So is there any way you can share where they can get the slides and other materials from, where you, if they want to access the materials, what you might have presented yesterday in fact?
Sure. So I mean, if they are attending the StarEast conference, then those materials are available to all the attendees.
Right. So they just have to go to the StarEast conference.
If not, they can reach out to me. My Twitter handle is DevOps QA.
DevOps QA.
So if somebody is interested, I can share the slides as well.
Goes perfectly with the presentation. Huh?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for joining us, Tanya, and taking time off your busy schedule and speaking to us.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.